what you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
This is a previously recorded episode of Making Living Better on WHKY, Catawba County, North Carolina's radio source for first-person storytelling.
Good morning. Welcome back to First Talk with Hal Row on WHKY Talk Radio for the Greater Hickory Metro. Another one of our Making Living Better, or another chapter in our Making Living Better series. Joining us this morning, a Catawban who is making living better today in our area is Jessica Lopez. She is the after-school program director at Centro Latino. Nice to see you this morning. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, everybody. Good morning, everybody.
Now, let's talk a little bit about you. I always like to go back and find out a little bit about and find out about people who I'm talking with, and because you're originally from Catawba County.
Yes, that's correct.
And then
born and raised.
Mm-hmm. And then as middle school. You kind of moved to the Statesville area.
So the Iredell County area.
County area.
Yep, parents decided to take a move out there. But we're right across the river, so right on the line.
So right on the line. So it's just about Catawba County.
Just
now,
about.
You graduated from high school.
I did.
And you decided that you were going to take a little trip after graduation.
I did.
Right? So tell me about that.
It was supposed to be a short trip. It was supposed to only be 2 months. I was a senior in high school, and I didn't quite know what I wanted in college. I had some ideas as far as career goes, and so I was like, let me just do this while I'm young. Let me get out there, see a little bit of the world, give a little bit back.
Right.
And so I ended up living in Lares, Puerto Rico for 4 years.
Wow. So it was going to be just a kind of a short trip.
2 months was the schedule.
Right. Mm-hmm. And it was going to be kind of a personal mission trip.
Right.
You had done mission trips as part of a church and part of growing up, right?
Going, helping the kids, building, constructing, your typical mission that you go out to do.
Right. Mm-hmm. So you go to Puerto Rico. Did you fall in love with it immediately?
No.
Right.
Now it's beautiful. Beautiful. The people are very friendly. But culture shock will hit you anywhere you go.
Right.
And I didn't know Spanish. And it's a Spanish-speaking country.
Sure.
And so being there, not being able to communicate, it was very frustrating at first. And people are different. They've got their way of living, and it was very confusing, very different. But then it took me about a full year of being submerged and being there for me to just be like, you know what? You're here. Let's go. Enjoy it.
Right. Mm-hmm. So now, a lot of your story and where you are today and where you've been is a faith story as well. Mm-hmm. And I think that if I'm not mistaken, in the pre-interview, you said at one point it was just like, okay, God, I don't understand the language, I don't know what's going on here, but I'm just going to trust you and I'm going to have faith. And at that moment,
it was crazy.
It kind of turned.
It was crazy, Hal. So I had been there for about 2 months. I don't know Spanish. I know nothing. And if you've ever spoken to a Puerto Rican in Spanish, I don't know if you have.
No, not that I know of.
Well, they are the equivalent. They've got a lot of slang. Okay, so they cut their words, and they've got their style, and so it's even harder to understand because they are not proper Spanish, and they're Spanglish because they're our Commonwealth, so they have all this English influence.
Right.
So it's crazy. Well, I had been there for about 2 months, and then I just got very frustrated. I was like, God, why am I here? Why did you send me here? Because I felt that it was Him sending me to be there, and I was like, I don't understand anything. I can't talk to anybody. I'm alone. I'm sad. And I was at a sunrise service, which is like one of those 5 a.m., 6 a.m. deals.
Right.
So my translator was sleeping. He was like, I'm out. And and so I was like, well, sorry, God, I'm just not going to get the message on this one. Right. And in the instant, the person was speaking, and in that moment, it clicked, and I understood. It was crazy. And from there, being able to speak it took a little bit longer.
Right.
But I could at least understand and shake my head yes and enjoy a conversation. And from there, it was amazing because I understood slang words. I understood everything. It was just in a moment. I'd never experienced anything like that.
I think that's fantastic. Now, I could understand a couple months. I can understand 4 months and going down and maybe falling in love with it and saying, okay, now I can learn the language and I can understand. Why 4 years? What happened? What happened that kept you there 4 years or moved you to that 4 years or where you felt like this is where I need to be? Tell me about that part of it.
It was so much bigger than me. It was so much bigger than anything that I'd ever experienced, and I didn't think.
Well, what were you doing there? What were you doing?
I was working kind of similar to the job that I do now. I was working in a school type program. The school systems in Puerto Rico are lacking, for a better word. They've got their issues and their situations. So a lot of the parents that were inside of the church that I was in didn't feel comfortable. There's a lot of violence,
right?
Even in elementary age, knife fights and things. Yes, it's and so they didn't feel comfortable with their kids, and they wanted them to get the best education that they could. So they wanted them to be bilingual. They wanted them to know English.
Right.
So we would work with the kids in like a homeschooling type environment. And so that's what I did for the most part. And then, of course, I fell in love with the creative arts that they do. There's dance and theater and all different types of things that they do inside of the church, which I love and currently still do. And so, that was my main mission.
So you're working with children. You were doing education. Mm-hmm. You were doing your best to help them with English and trying to help them with homeschooling and understanding some of this. One of the most interesting things that I thought about your story was when you were preparing to tell the youngsters about Martin Luther King Day.
Yes,
Did you share that with us?
That was a fun day. So, Puerto Rico, like I said, they're our Commonwealth, and so they celebrate our holidays, and it was Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And so they're second, third graders, and I'm trying to explain to them, this is civil rights movement. This is what Martin Luther King Jr. did.
Right.
And they just could not grasp it. I would explain to them, some people hated each other for the color of their skin. And they were like, but I don't understand that, because sitting in one room right in front of me, I have a light-skinned Puerto Rican, a dark-skinned Puerto Rican, orange-skinned Puerto Rican, and then you have me, and I'm as white as can be, and they just didn't understand why anyone would hate each other. And I tried. I even showed them Pocahontas. When the Indians and the white men, I was like, this is what I'm talking about. Yeah, the movie Pocahontas. Yeah. I was like, this is what, kind of, it's throughout history.
Right.
This is what people,
And they didn't have a concept.
They looked at me and they said, Miss Jess, that just doesn't make any sense. And I was like, good, keep it that way.
Was that
keep it that way.
You brought that up, and that was part of your story. Was that kind of an epiphany for you? Did you think about that later on? Did that impact you?
That was
about that culture and about us just as man, as human beings?
Yes, of course. I mean, that's how we should be. And, they always say we should see through the eyes of children anyway.
Right.
And to see, but that wasn't just the children. That is how they are. To them, you're light skin, you're dark skin, you're people. You're people, and we're going to help each other. That's humanity. That's loving each other. And I love that. I love that about it. And I feel that that's how the world should be. I feel that we should love each other no matter what race, ethnicity, what we are.
That's fantastic. Now, so you love it. You're working with kids. Things are great. You're loving Puerto Rico. You're loving the arts. You're loving dance. Everything's going great. So now the next question is, what are you doing back here?
What am I here for?
Right.
Well,
why did you come back? I guess is the best way to answer
yes.
that.
My pastor in Puerto Rico, and he's still my current pastor, felt a call from God to plant a church here in Hickory, because he felt that this community needs what God has showed to us, that same thing. And it's crazy because I'm with that vision.
Now, is he from Puerto Rico?
Yes, he's Puerto Rican.
He's Puerto Rican?
He's Puerto Rican pastor.
Okay.
Yeah, his name is Carlos Rodriguez, and the church is iChurch, and we're multicultural, multi-generational.
I like an iPhone or something?
Yes, it stands for Inspire.
Inspire. Okay, very good. So he says, we're starting a church in North Carolina. We need you. Come on. And you were like, I just got out of there.
Yeah, he didn't even say, I need you, come on. He just said, I'm doing this. And I said, that's my town, that's my people. And I want them to see what this is, because there had never been anything, like that. And I wanted them to see there's freedom, there's love, that this is how God is. This is how God is. There's love, and you care for other people. And no matter your age, no matter your color, this is how it should be. Let's worship together.
And so now, is that was the, I guess, job or I don't know, that's not the real job, but the vocation that you were called to do when you came back. So how long ago was that you came back to North Carolina and started the church?
This is year 6.
Year 6. So you're back year 6. Now, that's not the only thing that you're doing, because actually when we talk about title, it's the after-school program director at Central Latino. So is the job still, now when you came back and kind of planted the church, was there a job there? Did you find a job at Central Latino and did this as the calling? Tell me about how all that came together, I guess is the way that I'm asking.
If I'm going to give my life, if I'm going to live my life, let's go, let's not just sit around. So I work.
Hold on just one moment, because we got to go to a break. When we come back, we'll talk more about Central Latino and about what you're doing today. And not only do you work, but you also have some fun, because dance is a part of who you are.
Yes.
That's another part of how you express who you are as a person. We'll talk more about that. Jessica Lopez is our guest this morning. She's making living better.
Catawba County has great people who do nice things for each other. Catawba County also has amazing schools with teachers who make learning fun. We also have lakes, which makes fishing, boating, and family time a breeze. If you want a beautiful place to live with amazing opportunities, then come over to Catawba County. Catawba County, making living better.
Learn more at makinglivingbetter.com.
Good morning. Welcome back to First Talk with Hal Row on WHKY Talk Radio for the Greater Hickory Metro. As part of our Making Living Better series, we're talking this morning with the after-school program director of Central Latino, Jessica Lopez. Born and raised here in Catawba County. Spent a little time up in Iredell County, but just on the other side of the river. Made that clear to me. Just on the other side. I spent 4 years in Puerto Rico. Came back to the United States, fluent in the language after the immersion program of 4 years. Came back and started a church with the pastor who was at that time Puerto Rican pastor, who came and said, we need to start a church in North Carolina. Was it mostly for Latino individuals, or was it a church for everybody?
It's a church for everybody.
Church for everybody. So when you came back, you were working with that church, and also you told me you like to work. You enjoy working.
I enjoy working.
And Central Latino seemed like a great place for you. Tell us about your position at Central Latino and what they do, who they are, and what you do.
Yes, so I am the after-school program director at Central Latino. Our main focus is helping Hispanic students kind of emerge into our education system. As we know, it's fully English, our education system. And so they speak Spanish up until they're, 5 years old. Right. Completely, they learned all vocabulary in Spanish, everything. And so now when they get into kindergarten, it's like walking in. I mean, imagine if you were to walk into a room and they're only speaking Japanese or Chinese, right, and you have no clue, and you have to learn how to do a math problem, right, in that language. And so what we're trying to do is help them cross over, help them with that vocabulary. So we do one-on-one tutoring for these children. Right now we have 45 students enrolled.
Wow.
The more volunteers that we have, the more students that we can grab. You don't have to know Spanish to be a volunteer. So if you'd ever like to, you can check us out at Central Latino. And that's our main thing. We help them get through their homework. We read out loud to them so that they can really, truly hear the way a word is pronounced, because the English language is very complicated when it comes to pronunciation and the breaking of the rules and comprehension.
Sure.
So they really tend to get behind. So we have a lot of students that, although they're in fourth grade, they're on a first grade reading level. Okay. They come to us in those levels. So our goal is to push them, whether it's one level, whether it's two, just push them up to another level.
In the after-school setting, which has got to be difficult because you've only got them for a couple hours, right?
Correct. We are open from 3 to 6, and they only come, we don't have transportation, so they only come when their parents get them there. So sometimes they're only there for an hour, sometimes they're there for 2, just depends.
Is that difficult for you as an educator and someone who's maybe used to having people sit down? But you do have volunteers, from what I understand. You do have volunteers who speak English,
yes,
but you want one-on-one. That would be the
That's
goal.
the
So
goal.
right now you have maybe one volunteer to 2 students, maybe even 3.
Some days 3, yeah.
But that's the goal.
Yes.
So if you have someone showing up later and you have a volunteer who can do it a little bit later, you try to work those out.
Exactly.
Right?
And the LR, Lenore Ryan Work Study Program, partners with us, and they send me their work study students. So these are people that are in college and they're wanting to get their majors in education.
Right.
I have a lot of nurses come in, and it gives them experience with people, with public relations, with working with children, which is a special gift. We'll say, working with them in this atmosphere. And so, they'll come in and they sit down and they do all the work, honestly. It's all the volunteers and all my and my work study students that truly get in there. And I just oversee and guide and direct as needed.
You still love seeing the youngsters and making that a part of your life, and because that's what you did there, and that sounds like it's what you've done a lot of, and maybe that's where your talents and abilities.
That's our future.
That's kind of where you're
that's our future as children. The children are our future, and so we need to invest in them. We need to make sure that they're going to be, and that's part of what I do at Centro. I don't want them to just know how to read. I want them to learn how to be good citizens of this area, of this nation, and be able to give back as well.
The children are here. Let's do everything that we can to educate those children, to have them become incorporated and part of our society and part of our neighborhoods. So I think that's wonderful. Now, I want to talk a little bit about you, because we don't want to get out of here without talking about you. We're glad to have you here in Catawba County through your vocation, through what you're doing there. You are making living better in Catawba County. There's no doubt about it. But also, you, as all of us do, you have another side, and the artistic side, and part of that is dance. Let's talk a little bit about you and dance, because that's a big part of you, right?
Yes, it's a huge part of me. That's my main thing that I feel so strongly about.
What type of dance?
It's worship dance. So yes, that's like an oxymoron, right, in most people's minds, and that's why I love it, because constantly growing up, I grew up in the church, and I was tried to be told how to worship and how to have my relationship with God. And I never felt 100% freedom, because it was, stand up, sit down, read this, sing this. And when I went to Puerto Rico, this is actually where I experienced it, was worshiping through dance, worshiping with your whole body, and being able to truly express. Sometimes I'm not great with my words. Right. And so you say 93% of what you say is not with your words. It's with body language. Right. And so imagine me as a young girl. I couldn't communicate to the Spanish. I couldn't communicate in Puerto Rico, but I could express through my body, and they can understand, because just like sign language, you can express. And so dance is healing to me. Dance is my freedom. And, our society, we're ridden, we've got all this anxiety and depression popping up, suicide, and it's because people can't express their feelings, and we're told not to express them. We're told, how are you? Good. Right. And if you say anything other than good, then, I don't want to hear about it.
I was just being polite.
Yes, I was just being polite. I don't really care.
Right.
And so it's scientifically proven that if you hold in your negative emotions, there's no filter. You hold in the good as well, because you can't. There's no way to.
You're not letting it all out.
You're not letting it all out, and so every time we hold in that negative, we're keeping the good as well. And so what I like to do, I teach dance, I teach arts in general, and it's just allowing people to express what they've really got going on. It's a safe space to where they can come in, they can learn about God, they can worship, and they can, if they've had a terrible day, they can just dance it out.
Wow.
Honestly, just let it go, and it's go for it. Nobody's looking at you. Go for it.
I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I really do. That's not something that you hear of very often is, what type of dance? Worship dance. So I think that's wonderful. I really do. Mm-hmm. Before we wrap up, one of the things that you wanted to let people know about making living better in our area is that we're growing, and this is a wonderful place for growth. And whether that's English as a second language after school, whether that's worship, dance, you want to let people know, and if you could, let everyone know about the growth possibilities in our area. We have just less than a minute, but talk about your opinion and looking at growth in our area. Yes,
Catawba County is a great place to be. And trust me, I've traveled. I've been to Mexico, I've been to Dominican, I've been to Puerto Rico, I've been through the world, and it's not about, you know, whether there's a new restaurant that's popped up, or, you know, whether there's this or whether it's all about the people that surround you and the culture that you bring to it. So this is as good a place as any to see growth and to flourish and to live and to prosper. And it's happening. It's moving. There's movements happening of love and people coming together and acceptance. And Catawba County is a great place.
I'm glad that you brought that up. Love, acceptance, and those type of movements. Mm-hmm. Not always about brick and mortar, but about what's happening on an emotional and spiritual level. Yeah. That's just wonderful. Thanks so much. It's so very nice meeting you.
Thanks for listening. To find more first-person stories from Catawba County, visit makinglivingbetter.com or tune into themesh.tv each month for a new podcast.
You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.